9, 8.
You're watching the Experience Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Hi, everybody. It's Miss Jen. I've been excited to be able to talk to you guys again about really exciting things that are coming out in comic books, because I want you to be able to know about them way in advance so you can put them on your pull list at your favorite comic shop, or if you're traveling, you can check out other comic book shops to get maybe some source material for, so you can be all in the know. In this case, the source material for all the stuff we're going to specifically talk about today goes back quite a long way. If you're a Valiant fan, then you're just going to get all the cool inside information for what's going on in the Valiant universe. But also, we've got stuff that's changing. Remember that Valiant moved over to a cool company called Alien Books, which I hope you guys have been picking them up. It's amazing stuff. Also, Fred Van Lente, who we're going to talk to in just a second, has tons of stuff he's been doing. You probably have his work in your collection and don't even know it. And I hope that you guys are all big fans. All right, so go and please share so your friends can all join us. And remember that when we do these interviews, they're really interactive. So if you guys have questions, feel free to throw them in the comments and I'll make sure to get them asked if I can do it at all for you. So, all right, I'll be right back right after this and we'll get to talk to Mr. Van Lente. Everybody, and welcome in. Kenneth is the first person in the room, as always. And Kenneth is always so nice, always welcoming everybody. We really appreciate all of our regular viewers. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone, please give a mighty welcome and some thumbs up and some hearts for Fred Van Lente.
Hey, Jen. Good to see you again.
Man, I'm just saying, I should have really dug way more deep into my closet, because we could have Archer and Armstrong together.
I know, right?
Or Bloodshotted together, or something. XO'd together. I have all of them.
It's a
That's
classic
amazing.
Andrew Robinson piece from my original run back in 2012, circa 2012. Somewhere
in my collection of stuff. I don't know if you remember this, but back when it was Acclaim Valiant.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You remember those little bitty like Peep keychains that they made that just had like a single scene in them?
Vaguely a bunch. I had just moved to New York City and I lived with two comic book artists, Jamal Eigel and Steve Ellis. We lived on Prospect Park West, overlooking the park in Brooklyn, and they always had the Acclaim stuff. I most remember Ninjak. Kurt Busiek was doing it when he was a video game character. And then I remember the Garth Ennis Shadow Man. That's what I remember most. From the
I swear that the image in it was like Ninjak on a tombstone.
Okay. In like, it was like a keychain, you mean?
Yeah, it was literally like one of those, like when you go to go see the Statue of Liberty, whatever, you like buy a little keychain, you look through it, and it has like
oh yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about. It's almost like a Viewmaster.
Yeah. But it just has one image in it. That's all you get.
I mean, it's that small. I guess that's all they have room for, right?
That's true.
But we do comics. We have multiple images per page, unless it's a splash page.
That's true. Splash page, just one. All right, we're gonna do a little bit of getting to know you.
All right.
Because I know that regular viewers will totally understand all of these things. Okay. First things we share in common, you and I, foodies.
Yes, very much so.
Foodies. Okay, so all the pictures that I see on your social media, are you making that gorgeous stuff? I
am. Yes, it's something I started a long time ago. It kind of predates my pro writing career, and I just find it super relaxing. I like making stuff with my hands. I like making stuff, Jen. That's both where the writing stuff comes from and the food stuff comes from. My dad is a woodworker, so I think I got that from him. Just like using my hands.
Makes sense.
And and so pretty much everything I post on Instagram, which is at Fred Van Lente. If you want to follow me on Instagram, go right ahead. That's all stuff that I make at my home. I make a lot of Mexican, a lot of Indian. I really like making Indian food. A lot of Japanese, Korean, a lot of Asian stuff, I guess, in general. Some German.
So how do you get inspired for what you want to create? Are you making it on the fly? You're just like, I think I want to make something completely different. Or are you watching a show? Or
I used to subscribe to this great magazine called Fine Cooking that was by the Bon Appetit people, but they canceled it. I used to like just get it every month, or I think it was every other month, and then I would just make every recipe from the front cover to the back cover. And the ones I liked, I would write down, and then I tossed the magazine. But they canceled it. But then they signed me up for. It was either Bon Appetit or Edible. I forgot what the name of the magazine was. It was fine, but it was like super bougie, and like the recipes were like, go down to your local Armenian grocery and get this obscure spice that otherwise you'd have to order on Amazon. And I was like, go to hell. Yes, I live in New York City, which has got fantastic specialty markets, particularly the Indian specialty market.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could actually do that stuff.
Yeah, but I still have to leave my house and like go and find the stuff, and I don't have like hours a day to send my servants to go shopping for me, which I feel like was the tenor of a lot of these. Like, let's go, When you go to your home in Aspen, which new restaurant did you check out? It's like,
so I feel you're assistant with this list.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not the target demographic for this. Like, I felt like Danny Pudi. I write DuckTales, Larry. Like what's happening? So I went down like a slightly lower level of bougie, and I really like the New York Times has a cooking app.
Ooh.
Separate from the regular newspaper, and I subscribe anyway and have for many years. And so they do new recipes. That's where I get my new recipes from. And then they have a whole little, you have a recipe box where you can save your recipes and the different folders and stuff. I actually have a very similar app for my comic book collection. the cooking app is more hands-on,
Okay, so when you are shopping for something you're going to make, are you the kind of person that like has just a ton of stuff already in your refrigerator and pantry, or you just go and get just the stuff for that thing?
I have I have so many spices. I have like this it's like this big. It's like the size of, it's a 2-level cabinet, basically the size of this screen you see in front of me. And like, there's so many spices. It takes me like 20 minutes to find one spice. I'm like, no, not that. No, not that. No. But no, generally I just kind of go. It's cool here locally. There's actually walkable for me. There's a Japanese market, a French market, and an Italian market. This in addition to some regular grocery stores. So, and a great farmers market every Saturday near here. So the ingredients are there, but but yeah, I call it market crawling. I like just go and do my little circuit with my tote bags. It's very domestic.
All right, I'm going to make a 100% wrong guess. You have Thai basil growing on your windowsill.
I have regular basil growing on my balcony, but very close. Very close. I got nothing against Thai basil. The sun's very brutal out on my balcony, but it's the only place like I have any sun to cook. I have a nice garden downstairs, but it's like in this courtyard, like in those walls, right?
Yeah.
So it does not get a lot of sun. So that's a lot of ferns and shrubs and stuff. Although a month ago, there was work being done in the building, and they used my garden as kind of a staging area, unfortunately. And I was picking up after them, and I found there was like a hole in my garden that went down like 5 feet into this cavern under my garden. It was like real Stephen King stuff. And we realized that my entire garden and my neighbors is basically a pit. This place was built in the 30s, and they just dumped all the waste concrete down there. And so there's like 4 or 5 feet of concrete and then like 6 inches of topsoil. That's what my garden is on. I'm like, no wonder
Yeah, really.
It rains terribly, and like there was like a concrete wall separating that rubble from like this vault where our electrical cabinet is, right? Where all the electricity comes into the building. And that wall, which must have been built in the 1930s, just collapsed.
No.
And so the rubble fell down, and so now there's a sinkhole. And I assume, you know, a hellmouth, Aztec mummies. Like, there's just got to be something cool down there that's going to eat me.
Did you find anyone walled up into the wall?
Right, like in the Jester's outfit, the skeleton, you know, skeleton in the spaceman outfit. Like, that's interesting.
Wait, is there I know for a lot of old cities there are undergrounds. Is there an underground for New York?
It's weird in patchwork. There is about like a 5-minute walk from me, about 6 blocks that way, is a sealed subway tunnel they started to build in the mid 19th century to connect Brooklyn and Manhattan, but they gave up on it. And you can still go down in there, but it's just this brick, you know, tunnel. It's not really connected to anything. By a weird coincidence, about a block from there was H.P. Lovecraft's house.
Oh, wow.
When the famous and famously shut-in horror writer briefly lived in Brooklyn and got married here in Brooklyn. His first residence was on Clinton Street, which is about a block from the abandoned tunnel. So maybe
you sure you didn't live in your house and that's where the hellmouth is?
I mean, I wish. I found his house. It's still there. There's like a lot of like cracks in it. Like maybe, you know, if you've read the horror of Red Hook, he talks about this neighborhood in not very flattering terms. But you know, H.P. Lovecraft, he was a little finicky.
All right. I think that very creative people often have quirks, and that's cool.
Right?
All right. One of your other quirks that we also share is a love of the baseball.
Oh, yes, very much so. Very, very much so.
I assume different teams.
Very much so. Are you assume you're Astros?
We go Stros. I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody that's like cheaty beaters. I'm like, it's just because you didn't think of it first. So there.
Well, that was only the first one, though, even if you want to claim that it was cheating in the first one. The second one was legit. Houston, Minute Maid is the only place outside of New York I've seen 2 baseball games in. Ooh. At 2 separate Comic-Cons.
What did you go see? Who were we playing?
You know, it was a long time ago. The first time, I remember the second time I think it was the Orioles and the Rays.
Oh, wow. See, the Orioles are tough because I tend to cheer for Jeppy's team if they're playing, unless they're playing mine, and then I don't know what to do. There you
go. Well, they're both, that's true. They're in different divisions. Mm-hmm. I live in New York City, so I root for 2 teams, the Mets and whoever's playing the Yankees. So it's I always have something
whoever's playing the Yankees.
Unless it's the Braves, in which case it's like, you know, it's hard.
Did you make any headway in getting a Piazza Day instead of Columbus Day? I saw that you were really working it.
Yeah, I had this whole string on social media. It's been a weird July. It's been an unusual July through various random things. I've just been doing a lot of baseball related things. The Mets have this Japanese pitcher, Kodai Senga, who was terrific last year, but has been on the shelf. He got hurt in spring training, and he just started his rehab assignments. And I saw his first one in Brooklyn at Fireworks Night at the Brooklyn Cyclones, which is the single A Mets affiliate. And then I went camping and went biking on the Erie Canal the next week, and we just for a lark went to the Syracuse Mets game, and they're AAA, and that was his second rehab start. So I'm not but then I took a photo. Like, they had this big Mike Piazza mural in the Syracuse Mets stadium. So that was my first, hey, instead of Columbus Day, what about this? And then the next week, and then that same trip, we went to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And so I took a photo of Mike's Hall of Fame plaque. Mm-hmm. And I did the same Columbus Day joke. And then later that Friday, my dad had got me tickets to the Mets game. And so I was in the Mike Piazza Club, where he's got like a specialty vodka, because I guess all celebrities, it's by law, have to have their own brand of alcohol. Oh, yes. And so I took a photo by there. But yeah, and then I'm going to then my friend took me. My friend is this rich client. He does IT. We're on the same trivia team. And so we were behind home plate for the Yankees game on Friday. and then I'm going to my last Mets game for this pack my dad got me for Christmas next Monday. So it's been a lot. I think I've seen like 6 professional baseball games this month.
Okay, so you just dropped a bit of stuff in there
Yeah.
that I have to explore. Trivia team, is this because you do so much research for like your novels and like for action philosophers and all that stuff?
Jen, I'm kind of a well-rounded nerd. I don't know if you're getting this vibe off me, but I also roll Dungeons and Dragons. We can get into that later. But yeah, it's fun. We've been doing it for about 10 years. We always our team is our team name is Possums Can't Get Rabies, which I like because that is itself a piece of trivia. Our trivia name.
Is that actually true?
Their blood temperature is too low.
Oh.
So cannot live in their bodies. So if you're bitten by a possum, get all sorts of shots, but rabies not necessary.
That's actually helpful to me because one of my neighbors, like right after the hurricane this last week, said that he saw wandering through our yard very slowly and looked very, very sick. A possum. He was like worried about that it might jump out of the bushes and bite me. So now I don't have to worry about it for any other reason except for I don't want to get bit.
Well, I was gonna say it might bite you anyway. Like rabies isn't the sole reason that animals bite people, but so just don't poke it with a stick and you're probably fine. No. We have a weird amount of possums in New York City. I was riding my bike late at night through Williamsburg, and I looked. There was a giant white shape. I looked at it was a possum running beside my bike. I went brr, and then I started biking really fast, and then it was gone. Went down to the river, I think. But that was unique.
I think possum get a bad rap. I agree. Jay's saying possums are so misunderstood. They're actually great at controlling, grub populations and other things.
I think they're weirdly cute in a psychotic kind of way. If those of you who are on X.com should check out a Possum Every Hour, which is one of my favorite Twitter accounts. It just posts a possum photo every hour. It's adorable and terrifying.
I think the only thing scary about them is they like to show their gums. I don't know what that is.
They do. They like to. They're hissers.
Yes.
Them and Canadian geese. A lot of Canadian geese at the Erie Canal last week, and they had their goslings, and they like to hang out on the bike trail and hiss at you.
She says violently cute is how I describe my wife. Yep, that's Jenna. That's Jenna.
Well, I'm sure she takes it as a compliment.
All right, so let's talk about. I know we're going to get around to like our main stuff. We got plenty of time today, but I did want to talk a little bit about the other things that you do that are so amazing, like action philosophers. Like that has been an amazing series of books.
Thank you.
Are you still working on more?
Yes, in fact, volume 2 of the color edition of Action Philosophers with the new Mary Shelley story should have just reached the US of A this week. I've already seen fans and retailers posting about it. That's volume 2. That's Omnipotence for Dummies. And that comes out through Rocket Ship Entertainment, Tom Eagle's great company. And that's all the philosophers from like Renaissance on to like the 20th century. And then we added Mary Shelley, because even though, she created Frankenstein, but it's not necessarily herself a philosopher. However, she is the daughter of 2 of England's most famous philosophers, William Godwin and Mary Wollstonecraft. And so they very much influenced her in a way, I think. So it was an appropriate story.
I did not know that. How did you get so interested in philosophy?
What happened was Ryan, I had been going with my friends. This is kind of when I was just starting out, to SPX, which is this indie convention outside Washington, D.C. And it's been a fundraiser for the CBLDF, and they had an anthology to raise money for the CBLDF. And one year they did a biography thing. And I've been doing like different like kinds of mini comics for SPX. Like Steve Ellis and I did this Jack Chick religious tract comic, but it was for Cthulhu, the aforementioned H.P. Lovecraft.
Awesome.
So that was really well received. So it was doing it was like parodies of different kinds of comics. They did this one year. The theme of the CBLDF anthology was biographies. So I thought it'd be funny to do like a comic in the style of like the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe comics, like the little ones that came with your action figures, but for something completely ridiculous that you would never have an action figure for. So like Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, which I'd been reading at the time, which is something you do in your early 20s. And so the name of the strip was Action Philosophers, because the joke was that this was the little comic you got with your Friedrich Nietzsche action figure. And so like I'd taken some basic, philosophy courses in college, but I got into it because there was such a huge reaction to that comic. And so we did more, and they were successful. And we did like, I think we're now up to, we've been doing them for 20 years. So we're up to like 350, 360 pages of philosopher comic, something like that.
Perfect.
And then the latter part of history will take place in Action Philosophers Volume 3, Modernity Bites, which will be coming from Rocket Ship, which will be kickstarting next year, I assume.
That's so awesome. Oh my gosh.
I have another, if you don't mind, I have a fun nonfiction comic Kickstarter I wanted to mention. Game Masters, which is a history of role-playing games, since this is Dungeons and Dragons 50th anniversary, it's something I'm really into. This is something that Tom Fowler and I worked a bunch of stuff. He's done a bunch of covers actually for a bunch of my Valiant stuff. We did Hulk together at Marvel. This is a new book will be kickstarting very soon. If you want to check it out, go to Kickstarter, just put in Game Masters and sign up. It's through Clover Press, which is the company that the former founders of IDW founded. They've been great to us. And good news, Jen, there is a retailer here, so fear not.
Oh, goodness. It always makes me sad if I get left out.
No one is being left out. We have a big tent here at Clover Press. But that's my next nonfiction thing.
So, okay. So what is, so I know you play D&D, but what, did you find that there was a lack of information about the history of how all that stuff started? No Gygax stuff? Well,
I mean, it depends on how far you want to go back, right? And my answer is very. So I mean, Dungeons and Dragons, its roots are in historical wargaming, right? Simulating battles with little lead figures. And all of that traces itself to actual war games invented by actual Prussian military guy back in the 19th century. And that was a reaction itself to the earlier war games, the most famous of which and the most popular game really of all time is chess. So we actually start with chess, which was, as far as we know, invented in India around the 6th century.
Wow.
In the Gupta Empire. And then it went from India to the Islamic world, and then it got to Europe by way of Spain, which was Muslim at that point, but went from Baghdad to Muslim Spain, basically. And then from there, people started using it so like when you were a knight, like you talk about Dungeons and Dragons, one of the actual skills, if you were a legit knight, was to play chess. In addition to falconry and writing poetry and all those chivalrous things, right, that knights would get up to or supposedly got up to. But there's lots of problems with chess, not the least of which is that it's very, it's full of certainty, right? Like every piece, if most people know how to play chess, you know that you move a piece and another piece, you immediately kill that other piece, right? There's no combat, it just happens. But that's not how actual war is fought, right? Is most of war is fought with people trying to conceal their strength from each other, right? Mm-hmm. And there's also a lot of chance involved in actual warfare. What if it rains? What if you trip and fall on your sword? You know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. And so it's from wargaming then that develops from chess that you get things like dice are added in order to provide a range of possible outcomes. And from that tradition, dragons.
Okay, so now this makes sense. So when did the dice, that part of the chance part of it, when did that enter into wargaming?
About 1820.
Wow, that early.
And this guy Reisweitz, he was out of Prussia, he came up with this dice method. So basically, the dice all had like special outcomes on them. They weren't even like they weren't 20-sided. They were like 6-sided, but they all had different letters on them to indicate outcomes of attacks, right? And in German, so like it would be you were treated, you were defeated, you were destroyed, or whatever. And then what basically happened was there's this guy out of Baltimore who started a company called Avalon Hill, and he came up with a game called Tactics that was basically the war game of the European elites, because up until that point, up until about the 1950s, war games were primarily the problems of the actual military. They're the only people who were actually interested in them, you know. But after sort of coming up with these war games for his Tactics game, this guy Roberts decided he would take those rules. Like Tactics was successful enough that he could do a company and make more games. And so the next game he did, he decided to do a historical battle game, take his rules and apply it to an actual battle where you could actually decide maybe the historical battle did not turn out the way it did in history, depending on how you fought or your opponent fought. And the battle he chose was Gettysburg. And Avalon Hill's Gettysburg board game was a massive success and spawned the first real civilian wargaming craze. And Gettysburg, and to a lesser extent, Diplomacy, which I don't know that you've heard of Diplomacy. Diplomacy is another kind of like strategy world. It's almost like Risk, but with more backstabbing. There's a lot more like player interaction, behind the scenes stuff. Those two games, particularly Gettysburg, are what got both Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax, the co-creators of Dungeons & Dragons, into wargaming.
Well, that's awesome. So the games that you mentioned, I'm going to show my ignorance here. I know that every once in a while I have someone bring in what they call I think they call them bookcase games, where it looks like the spine. Yes. You just put it into your book shelf.
Yeah.
Is that were they designed like that?
Yeah. Avalon Hill was the master of the bookcase games. Absolutely. Okay. And those were all very like serious, like I'm playing you play the Axis, I'll play the Allies, let's refight World War II, like that kind of stuff. Dungeons and Dragons ended up becoming much more freeform, which was largely the influence of Arneson, and somebody like Gygax, who was more kind of technically interested and oriented. He's the guy who introduced like, let's have 20-sided dice, let's have 8-sided, let's have 12-sided dice. These were all pre-existing. In fact, the ancient Greek and Romans used 20-sided dice. These 20-sided dice are discovered by archaeologists, usually in Hellenic Egypt sites dating back to like the time of Christ. We don't know what the Greeks used or the Romans used 20-sided dice for. Knowing the Romans and their obsession with predicting the future, it was probably some kind of divination, like tarot card reading, or like the I Ching or something like that, casting of lots. But yeah, so they've been around forever. But it was Gygax who came up basically with the idea to apply them to role playing games. And so now so he had to, back in the old days, when TSR, the company that originally published Dungeons and Dragons, which was Gygax's company, because no one would publish Dungeons and Dragons, everybody rejected it. It was too weird. He had like special order 20-sided dice from Japan, where they were manufactured for like probability classes, like college classes, like to get like bell curves, right, of statistics. If they ever made you take statistics in college, they made me take it. There's a lot of like coin flipping and something like, let's have more sides, the 20 sides, but then ultimately, obviously, the 20-sided dice became really associated with Dungeons and Dragons, which itself grew out of Gygax had created this thing called chainmail, which was a rules for miniatures, but for the medieval times, right? Before then, most miniatures games were for whatever reason, the most popular genre to game with miniatures was the Napoleonic Wars. And so, it would be, we're attacking Russia, we're attacking Egypt, it's Waterloo, or whatever. But then Gygax did these rules for medieval combat, and then he thought, just for the heck of it, because he loved comics, he particularly loved EC comics. The connection with comics and Dungeons and Dragons is very interesting. The very first illustration of the first box set of Dungeons and Dragons was actually ripped off from an issue of Strange Tales, from the Doctor Strange story and Strange Tales. The artist was Dan Atkins, and we remember
the cover of it, or one of the interior pieces.
So the cover, yes, and all the interiors are ripped off of Strange Tales. And as hardcore Marvel fans know, this was a comic from I think 67 or 68, I don't remember, but that was when Doctor Strange was sharing the comic with Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Steranko was drawing it. And what's funny is in the original Dungeons and Dragons, they not only ripped off all the sort of like fantasy drawings of the Doctor Strange story, they also ripped off a bunch of the Steranko drawings from that same comic, but the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. story. So instead of a gun, right, Nick Fury's pistol, they would erase the pistol and added a sword, and that's how the illustrators ripped off that issue of Strange Tales rather thoroughly.
All right, I think I have the original box set, so now I'm going to have to go find the original.
Yeah, from
Strange
7.
Tales and be like, look.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty funny. And I think Marvel was like, yeah, don't do that. So they had to totally change the art in the next editions. So in Chainmail, Gygax added rules for the fights, the fantasy fights, the big battles in Lord of the Rings, right? Mm-hmm. So you could stage all those battles that you remember from the movies and the books. And then Dungeons and Dragons basically came out of that because Arneson took that and ran with it, and they ended up doing the book game together. Had a falling out. There was a lawsuit. That's why there's an advanced Dungeons and Dragons, so TSR could not pay Arneson his royalties. Arneson was like, "No, you still owe me my royalties." Lawsuits happened. Then they were accused of being satanic. Jen, the story just keeps getting more and more interesting the more the book goes along, and Tom's art is fantastic.
I'm pretty sure my mom and dad would really be dismayed to know that we played D&D at lunch in high school.
Yeah, they were. They didn't want you listening to rap music either, I imagine.
I failed in that regard as well. It's like a lot of things. There's like most parents back then, they would just listen to whatever the TV news was saying about a thing, and there wasn't a lot of ways to go research stuff like we do now. Like we have the whole world at our fingertips. We can figure out stuff. You're like, okay, well, someone said this, but let's see what the real news is.
Right.
Is there anything you've ever researched for any of your books that you like later on were like, crap, it's wrong?
Yeah, that happens way too often. I've been doing this for 20 years and you just try to be 100% accurate, but you just have to accept that mistakes happen. I'm also like a one-man operation. I'm not like working for the New Yorker. So I've got like a suite of fact checkers working for me. So I have to do the best I can. And trust me, people will absolutely have no problem telling you that you've been wrong. I've been lucky. It's not happened a whole hell of a lot. Partly just because it's like you just have to work at it and sit there. Mm-hmm. And I did the final fact check for the Game Masters pages. They're going to go live with when the Kickstarter finally goes live at the end of the month. And I found like 7 errors. I was like, oh god. The problem is, unfortunately, is that your narrative brain is different than the fact checking brain.
True.
So the one shuts down the other, and you've got to constantly. It's like looking at an image like this constantly, and being like, "Okay, wait, no, that looks good. Nope, that's wrong. Wait, okay, let's try that. No, So it's a lot of that. You just have to, And when people find stuff that's wrong, you just got to kind of take the L.
Yeah.
But it's just the way it is, and a lot of it, frankly, is a lot of like the actual primary sources I get it from. A lot of the folks who were there. Get it wrong, or are just lying.
They misremember in the most positive way that reflects on them.
Exactly. So trust but verify, and sometimes that's very challenging.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you guys need to pay attention to that Kickstarter because it sounds like the absolute best gift to get for the person in your life that likes playing any RPG. So
it's purty.
And it's purty. All right. Tell me a little bit about Domestika.
Yeah. Domestika is a company that they're out of Madrid. They do online courses mostly for creatives. And a couple years ago, they approached me about doing a scripting course. And I taught a lot for Comics Experience. If you go to my website, fredvaliant.com, I talk about how to format a comic script, and I've been very flattered that a lot of people have adopted my style as their style, as their format style. Unlike screenplay writing, there's no real, official accepted format style, but I'm doing my best to make mine that. And so Domestic has a studio here in New York City, and so for a couple of days I went in and shot a video course, like Masterclass or the thing Alan Moore does, but except cheaper, and I'm not Alan Moore. But my accent is from Ohio.
Ohio is great.
But it was a lot of fun, and it's been very successful. We just passed 5,000 attendees, which is fantastic. So it's just very gratifying. And I interact with you on the site if you buy the course.
So that sounds perfect. So you could be like in the middle of trying to write something and be like, I need help. I don't know what's going on here.
Exactly.
All right. So you, of all people, probably can give a very accurate kind of layout of Valiant as a company, where it started and where it is now.
So Valiant is often been called the third biggest superhero universe behind Marvel and DC, and I think that's probably accurate. It started by Jim Shooter and Bob Layton and Barry Windsor Smith and a lot of folks from Marvel mostly, but not entirely, back in the 90s, back when Image first started in the Ultraverse. My first comic was Prime. Those of you Ultraverse fans out there,
love Prime so much.
And in fact, my editor on Prime was Hank Collins, who's now my editor at Clover Press. So it's this weird, I like to say, Jen, that comics is like the white van of careers. Like once you accept the candy and go inside, you've never heard from again.
It's kind of true that you like everyone's in the van already, right?
Right. It's right. This van just gets like the TARDIS. This van is going infinitely in all directions, but you can't leave. They've been rebooted a couple times by the aforementioned Acclaim, kind of immediately after the demise of the first Valiant, and then by some investors and Valiant fans actually who bought the company in 2012. They were then, I think, leveraged out by DMG, which was I think a Chinese-based media company. I don't know what's going on there, but right now they're being run by a terrific Argentinian outfit called Alien Books. They are doing some great comics with spearheaded by the great Lisa Hawkins, our editor-in-chief. And we are, it's not a reboot, but we're definitely trying to resurge the Valiant universe, hence the name.
Yes.
And we're doing a build up to a big event here in the fall, kind of reintroducing all the main characters to the world and the reading public.
All right, let's get everyone caught up. You have main universe Valiant, superheroes like Exo, Man of War, and Bloodshot, and then you've got the dark side.
True.
And sometimes these cross over.
Yes,
so
that's right.
So have they always just coexisted side by side, where you get things like Master Dark and Punk Mambo and those guys? They
have, yeah. Shadow Man was actually my favorite of the original 90s series. It was the first comic I ever pitched on, believe it or not. That was very cool. So it was very cool to write the Darks. It was one of the titles that's coming out here shortly, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. Yeah. But so there is sort of another fun thing about Valiant is they've always had different time periods. So like there's Rye in 4001 AD in the future of Valiant, right? And in the 90s they had access to the gold key characters, right? Like Magnus Robot Fighter and all that stuff that played heavily into the original Valiant. I wrote the Magnus book for Dynamite a few years back. And then you also have the past, which is something I'm very much into. And so there's the three immortal brothers, Armstrong of Archer and Armstrong fame, sort of the hard-drinking poet. There's the Eternal Warrior, who's the fierce one, who's the defender of the Geomancer and sort of keeper of the earth. And there's Ivar the Time Walker, who's kind of the wild card. He's the inscrutable one who kind of goes through history with his own kind of secret plan to make sure humanity moves forward in the right direction. And then to this bunch, there's been added a fourth sibling, the heretofore unknown sister of the 4 immortal siblings, and that's Vexana, who was, for many years has been known as a villain called the Warmonger, but has been recently brought into the fold. She has the power to pit other people against each other, and she has kind of a mysterious past. But now they're all 4 of them together.
That's awesome.
United.
So I have a question, and you guys out there that are watching, if you have Valiant questions, now's the time. Just type them in there. I'll make sure to get them asked for you guys. The thing I've always loved about the Valiant universe is that if they kill somebody, they really are dead.
Yes.
I don't worry about like, okay, well, I'm not going to feel real sad about it because that guy's going to show up again. Like when you kill Toyo Harada, I really am crushed inside because he's one of my favorite characters, but also there's real implications that happen in the Valiant universe. So you can really worry about the characters that you love. Is that something that you see the universe still embracing?
Yeah, I mean, one of the advantages of having this kind of tightly knit universe is that there's a sort of a much smaller brain trust, right? Trying to figure all this stuff out. So we want the stories to have dramatic, lasting impact. So we're going to avoid doing things like, killing somebody off and bringing them back 6 months later. We want this stuff to be impactful. And that's why, just maybe if there are resurrections, since you can't spell resurgence without resur.
Okay. That's
logic, right? We also want those to be super impactful. So I think what we don't want is sort of a revolving door installed in the afterlife, where stories keep getting done and undone, right?
Right, exactly. I think the sky just opened. We've had big storms coming through. I can hear it pounding down. Okay, so is the first story as part of Resurgence the Darks? Is that the first title?
Chronologically, I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So Nicodemo Dark and his sister Sandria are the arch enemies of Shadow Man, who's that guy with the skull head you see directly underneath me. They are brother and sister twin wizards with kind of I'd call it a Game of Thrones-y-esque relationship. They're really close, you guys. But the last we saw them was they were banished into the Ring of Solomon, which, according to legend, is a mystical piece of jewelry that wizards can use to summon jinn and other spirits, and then banish them back into the ring when they are, the wizards lost interest in them. And the Darks have been trapped into this pocket dimension in the ring, which is something we haven't seen before, which is called Soul Side.
Okay.
So we have Dead Side, which is where Baron Sandy and Loa live, and then we have Live Side, which is where Jen and I live, and the rest of you. But now there's Soul Side, which is this completely other dimension that we haven't seen before, and that's where Master Dark is kind of reinventing himself. And it's filled with all sorts of monsters and spirits and ghouls and interesting new locations like the Insanitarium. Master Dark is surprised to find Soul Side looks exactly like Victorian era New Orleans, like Anne Rice era New Orleans, and which sort of might be a key as to what's going on there. And he finds himself, basically, his sister is kidnapped by one of these spirit clans that are constantly fighting each other on Soul Side, and she sends him on a mission to get a dagger for her late eclipse, which is being held in the sanitarium. Otherwise, his sister's life will be forfeit. But unfortunately, threatening Master Dark and trying to extort Master Dark rarely ends up going well for those who try it, because he's a nasty piece of work, Master Dark. So mystical, horrific shenanigans ensue.
So how does that interact with the characters that we are used to from just the normal universe? Are they going to impact them, or is it just going to be dead side characters that are going to see what's going on there?
That is a little spoilery.
Okay, well, we're not going to spoil it then. We don't want that.
It directly leads into the main events of Resurgence, but
Okay.
you won't know until the very end.
Okay, so
I guess the easiest answer I can give you is that they do interact with each other, but I won't tell you how.
it's the how. Okay,
It's a surprise.
that's awesome. So for you, just like it's one of those desert island questions. If you could only eat one thing, if you could only write one Valiant character,
Oh, that's hard.
I know it's an impossible task.
Well, I mean, I guess I like it so much, and I just find so much resonance in commenting about the way things are today, and there's so much fun. And I don't know if this counts as one character because it's two characters, and that would be Archer and Armstrong. The conspiracy busting duo of the right-wing Christian assassin and his immortal hedonist drinking buddy. But they're coming back as part of the Resurgence. We're doing that in August, because that number 1 is coming out, and that was just so much fun to do. And I just feel like I just have a very it's the series that I've done, I think, of all the comics I've ever done, that's the most like me. That kind of combines, even though I didn't create them, absolutely Barry Windsor Smith created them and did a fantastic job with them. This version of them, I feel like, is very much sort of my sensibility. Straining in kind of philosophy and history and jokes and alcohol and good living and everything, so that I'm personally into. If I got baseball and Dungeons and Dragons in there somehow, then we'd be, then it would just be me in comics form. But yeah, I think it definitely Archer Armstrong.
I feel like I read recently, but then cannot find in my brain, did I read the story in which it happened, or is it something we just don't know yet, that Armstrong lost the immortality part?
Yes, that was in the Archer Armstrong Forever series, which came out a couple years ago. And Archer now has the immortality. And
this is interesting. Okay.
That is a major thing in the Archer Armstrong Resurgence series.
Okay. I think my favorite issue of them together is that you guys had that kind of excursus set of like 4 or 5 books that were all kind of like what if Russia won, and it was them in the gulag. Oh my gosh, I'm bawling. So good.
That was a fun series.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm assuming you're not just putting your paws on the darks. What else are you gonna grab onto in that universe?
Well, so also premiering with the darks, I think in the same week, is Eternal Warriors #1.
Okay.
Last Ride of the Immortals, which is a Western starring the aforementioned Anapada siblings, Armstrong, Time Walker, Eternal Warrior, and Warmonger, aka Vixana, and they are on a that one is even more directly tied into the Resurgence event, and they are on an Old West manhunt for Wyatt Earp.
I think this is our first Western, right, in this universe?
I hope. I feel like I pitched an Eternal Warriors Western years ago, and this is basically the kernel idea, because this is one of those you can't make this stuff up. So everybody's heard about the gunfight at the OK Corral, right? That happened in Tombstone. Yep. And basically, the Earp brothers and their ally Doc Holliday were victorious, but the Cowboys gang, which was sort of the object, on the other side of the gunfight. If you've seen Tombstone, you've seen Wyatt Earp or My Darling Clementine. They've made a lot of movies out of this. The Cowboys killed one of Wyatt Earp's brothers and then blew the arm off the other one. And so Wyatt Earp gathered a posse and went off after the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. And the name of this posse, I didn't make this up, was the Immortals. And so in my version of the story, the Ivar Time Walker has grabbed his other siblings, go back in time to figure out, because it appears that the immortals of Wyatt Earp were the same brothers, the same immortal brothers, but they have no memory of ever writing with Wyatt Earp 200 years ago.
Oh, how cool.
In the past. So they have gone back in time with their sister to try and unravel this mystery. And the Darks are also involved. And there's a lot of gunfights, zombies, ancient temples.
Oh, it's totally something right down. Hey, Danny's on. Hey, Danny. Danny's giving you dates for dropping for the books we're talking about.
Hey,
so
Danny.
Archer and Armstrong, August 21st. And Eternal Warriors, July 24th. So you guys can make sure to get with your local comic shop and get those onto your polls. It's right now more important than ever before because the economy is a little bit tight. Your local comic shop might be ordering really close to the belt. So like whatever's on people's subscriptions boxes and then maybe 1 or 2 copies for the rack. But if they start hearing from you guys that you're really interested in what's going to happen overall in the universe for Resurgence, then maybe they're going to pad it a little bit more, which gives more opportunity for the regular casual person walking into the comic shop to pick it up. Because if there's only one on the rack and it was yours, then there's no chance for anyone else to like it. So encourage your LCS that you're going to spread the word, like do your part. When you're standing there picking up your books, be like, hey, dude or gal, do you know what's going on here? It's like it takes an entire community to get this keeping going, right? It takes a village.
I mean, you know. Oh.
Danny's just here as a fan.
Thanks, man. I'm blushing. Not while I'm on video. My ears are burning.
All right.
And
someone needs to ask a question. Jay, I know you got one. Jay is like what you call an uber fan of everything Valiant. Like he has all the standees in his house, all the posters, and yeah. He is an uber fan. Jay, I know you got one.
And I'll also say that this stuff all leads directly to Resurgence because I'll be writing a lot of the actual Resurgence event myself.
Oh, perfect. Is it a standalone title, Resurgence itself?
It is.
Okay. And how long is that? Like a mini series of 4, or is it going to just kind of like pop in between?
It's 5 issues. There are a couple tie-ins that are character specific that'll be announced soon. That all kind of tie into the main story, but the main trunk of the story is 5 issues, with the 5th issue being a big Mama Jama like finale comic, which is super exciting. The first issue is by Becky and Michael, who are currently doing the EXO story, and then I take the ball and run from there.
I love EXO. I mean, every time a new series comes out, I'm like, I can't like him anymore, and then I like him more. So
he's a super
okay. Wanting to know, are Quantum and Woody coming back?
Yes.
There you go. You have it here.
Was that too quick?
and the goat. It's important.
So there are a lot of characters. I'm trying to cram as many as I possibly can in Resurgence, but some, let's just say all of the headliners are definitely coming back. Some of their supporting cast, unfortunately, may end up being less important. But I'm trying. I swear, I'm trying to get the goat in there. I love the goat. One of the fun things I did about it was the with James Asmus was the Quantum and Woody Archer and Armstrong team up book. Delinquents that the goat had a big part in, and that was fun.
I've always wondered if what looks to be like a completely disconnected part of the Valiant universe in Britannia actually exists in the main universe.
It does. In fact,
it's
in one of my Resurgence books. 100%. Oh yeah.
I love the detectioner so much.
He's fun. No, part of this is when you're trying to reintroduce the whole character and all the concepts, is I'm trying to get everybody in there. It's not physically possible, but
no,
I'm trying as much as possible. I'm trying. Some people are gonna get. But look, I think what's really cool about the event is that it's gonna be like Crisis or one of these other big industry events where every major character is going to have a fantastic moment. I think, it's dangerous to please everybody, but I think I'm going to please everybody. I think I'm going to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be the one who pleases everybody. That's what I'm telling you right now.
I believe in you to do it for sure.
Dying on this hill, I've decided.
You're dying on this hill. Well, if us big mega fans of Valiant have anything to say about it, it will always have fans with us. So faith and Fred hashtag.
No, the Valiant will go on. I'm the one dying on the hill.
You are not.
Valiant will keep going. I will die so Valiant can live. That's the whole point. Don't worry about it.
All right, we got like 1 more minute. Is there anything else you want to mention? I know you know another book out coming from Mad Cave.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much for setting me up for something I was going to say anyway. But yes, starting in October is a terrific creator-owned book I'm doing with Chris Ponda, a terrific French artist. It's a slasher set in an amusement park in Florida called Murder Kingdom. You must be this tall to die. It's sort of an homage to all those slasher movies, which I love. But it's combined with someone's killing the cast members of a fairy tale themed amusement park in Florida. Any association with actual real theme parks, total coincidence. But this mass killer is killing employees based in the gruesome manner of deaths in the original Grimm's fairy tales. Which, as you may know, are much spookier and scarier than their sometimes sanitized cartoon equivalents. And that's super fun. The covers are awesome. The first cover is terrific. That'll be soliciting for October.
Perfect. And we got links for you guys so you can read up on that. Mr. Van Lente, I'm always super happy to get to talk to you.
King, it's always fantastic.
I'm guessing you are not going to Comic-Con if you're still in your chair?
Yeah, no, I like Comic-Con just fine. I don't need to go every year. Okay. Frankly, I get my 5 days of insanity just fine at New York Comic-Con, where I get to sleep in my own bed. I don't want to do the same thing, but then have to walk from a hotel.
Yeah. Looks like you had a really good Heroes Con too.
Yeah, Heroes Con was super fun. That was a good time. That was my first Heroes Con. I really enjoyed it.
I hear big things about that.
It's good.
All right, everyone's saying thank you so much. I appreciate you and for giving up your whole hour of your time. I know you've got creative vision you're going to go and enact right now.
Well, I've got to go to a barbecue. My sister's barbecue, but so that's good too. Got to get some
foodie-ize it.
That's right, exactly. I will show up and judge everybody. Wait, no, that's not a good way to act at your sister's barbecue. Try not to do that.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for showing up for Talkin' Shop. As always, every week we're going to give you some inside information so that you know what to go ask your local comic shop for. And thank you for all you guys' support. And thank you again, Fred, for showing up. I love talking to you. Absolutely. Always a hoot.
Take care,
everybody. See ya.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.